Hello and welcome to Go Ballistic here on the Scottish Sun Sports YouTube channel. Now, there might not have been any Scottish football on the pitch this weekend, but that doesn't mean there isn't a lot to talk about. And just to let you know, Kris Boyd will be along the way shortly. He'll have plenty to talk about because he's dishing out his end of season awards today, isn't he? So
yes.
Interesting to see what he says there.
Is it a Shacket of the Year award?
Well,
Because you're FAV.
I don't think I think I've already gone at one, but do you think this one's got a chance? Is this
Possibly.
possibly?
Why do you like the colour?
Yeah, probably. Maybe less said of that, the better. But speaking of the team that wear this sort of colour, Rangers, of course, finally got that takeover over the line. Obviously, since we recorded last week's show at the end of the week, there it all went through. Certainly a lot of positive messages coming out from the new Supremos there at Ibrox. What do you make of it now that it's done, and do you think the fans will be liking what they're hearing in these very early stages from them?
From a professional point of view, I'm highly delighted it's done and the talking's over and they're actually in the door, Jonathan. Andrew Kavanagh, Parag Marath and the new directors come in on Friday. I think Kevin Thelwell officially starts today as sporting director. And I think the supporters now, they just want the manager. They just want our head coach as it's going to be, Jonathan. They just want him in the door. They've seen six senior players, 13 younger players head out the door. There's question marks over others. There's interest in Robin Proper and Ridvan Yilmaz and Mohamed Diamande. They want a manager or a head coach in to sort it out and start the process of rebuilding the team. There seems to be £20 million available to reshape. That's before you sell anyone and try and bolster that. $4.5 million of that may well be going in Oscar Cortez, depending on how you account for that. The supporters just want a manager in.
You mentioned there Kevin Thelwell. He's officially starting work today. It's looking like Dan Purdy, a man he's familiar with from Everton, is going to come in the technical director role, which obviously means Niels Coppen is on the way out. Yeah. Do you think as soon as this sort of takeover was being planned, the new faces coming in, was the writing always on the wall really for Coppen? Do you think that he was going to be on the way out?
I think so. It hasn't been there a great deal of time, I think 18 months or so, Jonathan, but I read a piece last week with Barry Ferguson, who clearly didn't feel the dynamic between him and Niels Coppen was right over that short period, that 15-game spell. And I think, you know yourself, when a new board comes in, they want their own men in positions of power, and the positions of power at Rangers are going to be sport director, technical director, head coach, and then the head coach brings in this, his staff beneath him.
What do you think? As you mentioned, he's not been there particularly long, Coppen, but I mean, he doesn't leave behind any particular legacy.
No.
He didn't really make much of an impact, did he? And certainly, there was quite a bit of excitement when he came in from where he'd come from, his roles, but it just didn't really work out, did it, at all?
No, it didn't. He came in shortly after Philippe Clement came to the club. I think, you know yourself, supporters get excited when you see people, he had a decent enough CV when he came in, but he made very little impact whatsoever, and there'll be a lot of question marks over a lot of the people who were recruited during his spell at the club.
Obviously, in Andrew Kavanagh's statement, saying Parag Marath, they're talking about the long-term sustainability and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, fans will be delighted to hear that. They'll want to see a long, stable footing for the club going forward. But the other side of the coin, they want that instant success as well. How instant do you think these guys need to get this right to sort of keep the fans happy?
Well, instant is instant because the first games are going to be round about the 22nd or 23rd of July. But we're starting here on the 2nd of June. It's not long, and those games at the start of the season probably are the most vital of the season. If Rangers can get through into that New Look Champions League group stage, then the money will start rolling in, and Andrew Kavanagh will be able to add a bit more to that £20 million he spoke about. So instant means instant. You look at previous managers that have come in. A lot of them sort of came in mid-season. It was difficult for them. They haven't had a pre-season. The new head coach will have a pre-season. He'll be able to get players in. He won't want to go in to Champions League qualifiers with what's left of last season's squad. Because last season's squad wasn't good enough. And if you strip half a dozen players out of that, it's going to be even weaker.
As you mentioned, some of those players currently on the books starting to be linked with moves elsewhere. Ridvan Yilmaz, as he always seems to be, there's that talk of him going back to Turkey. Diamande was one that you mentioned there as well, being linked in the English Premier League now. Do you think those are two players that could very well be moved on if the situation's right?
I think of the ones we spoke about, I think Yilmaz and Proper are most likely to go. Yilmaz, has been talk of him heading back to Turkey almost from the minute he arrived from Turkey, Jonathan. He's not made the impact that was expected when you look at the transfer fee. Jefty was ahead of him for a lot of last season, and I wasn't particularly convinced with Jefty either. Robin Propper didn't make an impact. You spoke about Niels Coppen and Philip Clement. Rangers have a rich history of getting good players from the Low Countries. Robin Propper's not one of them. So I think he could head back to 20. Diamande, we spoke about Nico Raskin at the end of last season. Diamande will only go if the money's right. And Rangers fans should be happy if that happens, because it boosts this player trading model they've spoken about so often. So Diamande came in from Denmark for a certain amount of money. If you can double that money or get any more, that's a good deal for Rangers. And then go reinvest it in the next Diamande or the next Raskin.
That would show it's working, doesn't it? That's exactly what they've kind of been trying to get in place.
There are other players as well that you would look at. Bajrami, done nothing. Danilo, done nothing at all. They could very well be, under threat. Is there a way out? Are the 49ers looking at getting a way out of the Cortez deal? There was an obligation to buy. He's made no impact whatsoever. And £4.5 million is a lot of money for Rangers. It's 25% of the money that Kavanagh and the 49ers are putting in.
Yeah, you have to think there's a way out of that, that they will take it. But as you say, it remains to be seen if there is that way out or not. I'm sure we'll see more on that shortly. And obviously, once they're able to get the players moving out, the fans will be more excited to see players coming in. That's always they look forward to. Do you think they'll maybe want to make a big splash, a big signing, a sort of marquee player? A name that keeps getting floated about, seen it again today, is Jamie Vardy. Could you see that working? Would that kind of fit that big name narrative if that's what they were looking for?
I'm not sure that's necessarily what Andrew Kavanagh and the 49ers are about. They didn't really do that at Leeds. They appointed a head coach and let him go and get the players that he wanted. Now, if Davide Ancelotti or Russell Martin come in and say, I quite fancy that guy Vardy, then yes. But I don't think it's something that would be driven by Andrew Kavanagh or the 49ers. I think recruitment will come down to Thelwell, Purdy and a new head coach.
Absolutely. Now, no domestic football obviously this weekend just gone. Next weekend coming up, we've got Scotland back in action for a couple of games, Iceland and Liechtenstein. What do you think Steve Clarke will be looking to get out of these games?
We're looking to get as many of his senior players together as he can, I would suspect. I think they gather tomorrow. We're here on Monday morning. I would expect a few changes from the side that was the squad that was initially announced. I'm not even sure that's a bad thing, though, Jonathan, because these two games, do we really need to see, and I'm only going to throw 2 or 3 names at this, Andy Robertson, John McGinn, Scott McTominay. We know what they can bring to the party. I would actually be more excited seeing the likes of Kieran Bowie getting an opportunity, having a look at George Hurst again to see if he can, bring something. I know Angus Gunn's back in the squad, but, I know he doesn't play a lot. Could there be a chance for a Kieran Slicker, for a Robbie McCrory to get a Scotland debut? People like that. I would mind seeing Nathan Patterson back in the team. A debut for Lennon Miller, I would suggest. Maybe more action at some stage for James Wilson. That's what I think Steve Clarke should be getting out of these 2 games.
You look at Kieran Bowie in particular, great end to the season for him, definitely deserves his call-up. He must be looking at this in particular as a real chance. If he can go and make an impact in these 2 games, he can start to cement himself a place in this squad, because there's always that striker place up for grabs here in this squad.
Because you look at Steve's squads, Che Adams and Lyndon Dykes, if he's fit, are always going to be in. But there are times, the other strikers alternate. Lawrence Shankland for a while was there. He went to the Euro. Kevin Nisbet's had a go. Jacob Brown's had a go. Right at the start it was Ollie Burke. Now it seems to be a James Wilson, a George Hurst, a Kieran Bowie. And I think those guys are now competing to be the real backup to Adams and Dykes.
Bowie, the latest one to get his chance. First game against Iceland, Friday night at Hampden. Looking forward to that. But right now, for yourself, Roger, you're going to go and see what Boydie's got to say today. Looking forward to him dishing out his awards. Surely be some interesting ones in there.
He's a very generous man. He's been looking forward to this. He's been studying all week who's going to get his awards. I've rarely seen him as excited.
Has he got a big dossier sat in front of him? Have you seen it already? Has he been compiling
stats? He is a stats man. He's been looking forward to this. He's had a quiet weekend, no live football. He's been down in the farm working hard and getting his awards ready. Cannot wait to see this. Roger, you're going to go do that just now. While Roger goes and get ready, just time to let you know there's always great content across our YouTube channel right here that you can find, including, of course, Derek McGregor's one-on-one. And last week he caught up with Robbie Neilson. Parts 1 and 2 are available now. Here's a little taster of what you can get from Robbie.
Obviously, I was at Rangers as a young kid coming through, and I get released from there. It was probably the best. Although it was extremely hard, at that point, you kind of take it to heart, and you feel kind of really disappointed. It was probably the best thing that happened because it gave me the chance to go somewhere and get into the first team and get training with the first team really, really quickly. And again, that was one of the key things. Jim Jeffries would get the young players involved at pre-season. You go away with them. You would train quite regularly with the first team. We had Peter Houston, John McGlynn. So Peter was the reserve manager, John was taking the 18. So again, two really, really good coaches. Paul Hegarty took the reserve team. So it was a fantastic place to grow up as a young player.
Well, we can now head down to Ayrshire. Sun Sports' Kris Boyd. Boyd, we haven't spoken to you on Go Ballistic since the Rangers takeover was confirmed on Friday. Kevin Thelwell, the new sport director, starting work today. What have you made of it all? A busy few days at Ibrox.
Yeah, it has been. But I think, for every Rangers fan, they'll just be absolutely delighted that it's over the line, Roger. I mean, it's been a long time since, the story broke that there was the potential of Rangers to be taken over. I think every Rangers fan will be delighted that it's happened now, and they'll be hoping the good times return to the football club. I think it's. I said it in my column. The weekend. I don't think that it would take huge amounts of money to turn around on the field. Rangers need to get more competition for places in that first team dressing room that can spur the rest on to performing week in, week out, rather than just whenever they want. Rangers have shown that they've got a level of performance in them, but it needs to be more consistent. I think that the big challenge for the new owners will be to put the structure in place that allows the club to flourish going forward, because I think for a number of seasons now, it always seems to have been a patch-up job, either in the summer, in January, and then go again for another few months, sack the manager, and the exact same thing happened again. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think there will be a proper structure put in place now that allows Rangers to, that framework is there, whoever the manager may be, that they will work within that framework. And, it can only benefit the football club, because Rangers need to get an identity back. They can't keep, managers will come in, coaches will come in, and they'll want to put their own stamp on it. I totally get that. But it shouldn't mean that the full club gets ripped up from top to bottom for 18 months. All of a sudden, a manager starts losing results, they sack him, a new one comes in, and then he does the same again. Yeah. So for me, I think the club needs to get its identity back. And reading between the lines, I think that is what's happening. We've seen there's already been staff and high places, and Ibrox already been removed, and you would imagine that there'll be a few more to follow.
Yeah, Neil's copping away already. What does success look like next season for Rangers? Is it is the potential there for a title challenge? 17 points behind Celtic, the season just finished, Boyd. It's a big ask to close that gap in 1 year.
I don't think it is, Roger. I really don't. I think when you look at Rangers against Celtic, as I said, there'll be more than a match, and there is no reason why Rangers shouldn't be beating the rest. That's just a fact. We've seen it before where there's been bigger gaps in Scottish football that, the following season it's came in, a new manager's come in and it's totally went the other way. I think, for a long period of time now, Celtic have been the dominant force in Scottish football, and they've found a way to win games of football even when they haven't been at their best. And I look at Rangers right now, and they're fragile in terms of on the pitch. You look at, when you lose a goal, yes, people can praise them coming back from towards the end of Barry Ferguson's reign in charge, coming back from a goal down, 2 goals down. But it's not good enough. It shouldn't take a goal or 2 goals down to then spur you on to get a reaction. I'll say it again, Roger. Rangers have shown they can compete against Celtic. It's the rest of the games that worry me. And for me, that is down to a mentality of winning week in, week out, putting in performances week in, week out. And that only comes when you've got a squad that pushes everybody, and I mean everyone, to get better on the training field, to get better, throws a challenge to them every single day, and by doing that, you can become a far better team. I've seen it change so quickly. You look at you go back to even Dick Advocaat's team when Martin O'Neill arrived, the turnover there. You then look at you take Walter Smith. I mean, we were a basket case. We had some really, really good players in our dressing room. With Paul Le Guen, but it was really poor on the pitch, struggling to get results. We'd finished third the season before under Alec McLeish, albeit we'd got to the last 16 in the Champions League. But, you know, when you look at where we'd finished and you felt as if it was the start of a new dawn at Ibrox with Paul Le Guen, it didn't really happen. But inside such a short period of time, I mean, 18 months later, we were playing in a UEFA Cup final, Roger. It can change. It can turn very, very quickly. And as I said, if you go and take care of the games against everyone else, the Old Firm games will take care of themselves.
We've seen players going out already. You know, there was the 6 first teamers: Hadji, Lawrence, Balogun, Cherney, Casemiro, Fernandes, all going. 13 of the youngsters, including the likes of Adam Devine and Cole McKinnon, who you've seen in first team squads, have gone. That's 19 players out the door. Will more go before there's incomings? There's talk of Ridvan Yilmaz back to Besiktas, talk of Robin Proper back to Twente Unskede. There's Everton interest in Mohamed Diomande. You know, do you think more players will go out the door to create space for the ones coming in with a new head coach?
Well, I think some players Rangers would drive them to wherever they're going next. You know, the incoming owners and a new manager, because, you know, it's been failure after failure, to be honest. They've shown in glimpses that there's been some decent performances in there, but that consistency has not been there, and you need that. You need to be consistent if you're going to be successful. So I would imagine there will be a turnover of players. I'm probably in danger of contradicting myself here. You know, you can't keep doing it every transfer window. But I feel as if this one has to happen. It has to happen. There has to be a clear out, and there has to be a proper that structure that I'm talking about put in place, bringing in players that allow Rangers to flourish going forward. Do I think there will be players leaving? Yeah, I do. You know, I think Bajrami, Yilmaz has always been linked with moves away. Bajrami's another one who, let's be realistic, Roger, for what Rangers paid for him, he's been a disappointment. You know, you'd expected more. I'm sure, you know, you mentioned Diamande there, there's been links with him away. Raskin's another one that you'd imagine there would be teams sniffing around. But I think for Rangers' point of view, they can't lose those two. I mean, Diamande and Raskin, for me, I think with better players around them, can become better players, can then maybe their performances can increase their value. So I think for Rangers, I would be looking to probably get, well, definitely Raskin. I know what's he got, a year, 2 years left. 2 years left, I think maybe. You don't want him getting into next summer when he's only 6 months out of contract, especially now, you know, he seems to be in the Belgium squad more regular. He's been getting minutes on the pitch, so it's not as if he's just making up the numbers there as well. And you've got to look, I think, when you look at with Raskin towards the end of the season, I mean, what was it? 3 goals, 3 assists in the last, 4 or 5 games of the season. That's one thing that, you know, for me, Roger, anyway, looking at it, you could see there was a good player in there. He would go and get the ball. He was tenacious in the tackle. But in terms of midfielders nowadays, what's the first thing we look for? Or the first and second thing we look for? Goals, assists. That's now coming from Nico Raskin. There seems to be, you know, he seems to be thriving on, I mean, dare I say it, the main man at Ibrox right now? Yeah, you could possibly say that. He seems to be thriving on that. And, you know, I think Rangers' point of view, they'll be looking for that to continue when he comes back. There is no doubt that when he arrived at first, there was a player there where we thought, oh, he might only be here for the short term. And Rangers might make, you know, a couple of quid on him. But he kind of lost his way a little bit, which can happen. You know, he's still a young boy when he arrived. But now he's at, what is it, 23, 24 now? So, you know, for me, he's now at a crucial stage of his career where, and Rangers can be a big part of that. You know, they can offer him the opportunity to go in that short window. If they get, you know, obviously European football, go and showcase what you can do. He's one that I wouldn't be in a rush to let go, but I understand if Rangers need to generate funds, he'll be potentially one of the first ones to go.
Now, Boyd, we've reached that time of the season, the 2nd of June, the football's finished with the Champions League final. What a game that was on Saturday night.
Unbelievable.
We're now down to your end of season awards.
Oh.
When the key people get the prizes they deserve, maybe don't want, but the ones they deserve.
Well, there's one thing. Robert Gray won't be getting any.
Well, he's got that golf trophy in the top of his telly. There's no room for another award, Boyd.
Wow.
Player of the year, the simple one. He's won every other one. Surely your player of the year is?
Yeah, it's Daiza Maeda for me. I think obviously Celtic, with what they've achieved this season, and you know, because of he was out wide and then through the middle, you know, it was 33 goals in all competitions. Yeah. Nicholas Kuhn at the start of the season, you know, I think you've got to listen. They're not player of the year, but you know, there is players in there where you think they've had good seasons. I mean, Cyril Dessers to finish top goal scorer in the league. Cherney was good over the period of time as well. Sam Dalby obviously scored goals. There has been other players within the league who've had good seasons, but Daisen Maeda sticks out for me.
Young Player of the Year. Now, both PFA Scotland and the Scottish Football Writers Association went for the same man, Lennon Miller of Motherwell. Is he a contender for you?
Yeah. I mean, I always, the thing is, Roger, I mean, what is the cut-off point for this? You always kind of look at it. There seems to be, there's boys round about 22, 23 that have done well. I think Lyle Cameron's had a decent season at Dundee. Obviously, he's got his big move. Bobby Wales at Kilmarnock obviously scored a few goals. He's got a move off the back it now as well. But, Lennon Miller, I'll be honest with you, Roger, I don't think this season, he's been a little bit stop-start with a couple of injuries there. I think he was better last season. But the games that he did play this year, he was still excellent. And I'm going to give Lennon Miller my Young Player of the Year. No surprise there.
New category, Boydie. Who's your most improved player in the Premiership this season?
Most improved. I think there's probably two spring to mind for me right away. Would be the Hibs player. I think Triantes in the middle of the pitch when he first came, he obviously played centre back, but he's went into that centre midfield role, and I think he's been excellent. And I mean, I don't know what Sunderland you'd imagine with him being out on loan and couldn't get a game in the Championship with Sunderland going up that division. That you'd imagine that he'll be one that'll be available for transfer. I don't know if now, because Hibs have, well, potentially, because they've still got a chance of obviously qualifying. They were banked on that £5 million from the Europa Conference money anyway, but they might have to. Well, they do have to do it the hard way now. But if they got that money, you would have maybe thought that they would have had a little go at trying getting him in. I don't know what would it cost, £1 million, 1.2, 1.3. I don't know, but I tell you what. I mean, I think a lot of even bigger teams could do worse than signing him because he's done really well. Another one would be Rocky Bashiri. I mean, I think when you go back to where Hibs were and mistakes, he was in and out of the team, and then they found this three at the back, and I think Rocky Bashiri has been a standout for Hibs this season. So from where he was, you always felt as if, he could be a major problem. He felt as if he was giving away goals right, left, and centre. But he seems to have eradicated all those mistakes. So between either of them, but I'm going to say Rocky Bashiri.
Cool. Good call. What about manager now? When it came to the journalists' vote, Celtic had won the league, Celtic had won the Premier Sports Cup. I was sure they'd beat Aberdeen in the cup final. So Brendan Rodgers got my vote. He won the Football Writers Award. But of course, things changed at Hampden May the 24th. It throws it open. There are contenders. Jimmy Tilleen, David Gray, Jim Goodwin, Stephen Robinson, John McGlynn. Who do you fancy, or is it Brendan Rodgers?
I mean, I think obviously when you look at John McGlynn done a fantastic job with Falkirk with back-to-back promotions, then to make that step, up to the Premiership was a big one. I mean, for me, he's right up there. I think when you look at Jim Goodwin, the job he's done at Dundee United, taking them from the Championship and getting that fourth spot. Stephen Robinson again, Jimmy Tilleen, semi-final, final. Disappointed the way they finished the league campaign, but had a fantastic start. But Scottish Cup winners. You then look at David Gray from where Hibs were to turn it around, and I mean he would have felt the pressure. There's no doubt about it because they were down and out. I mean they were struggling, and you felt as if they were probably minutes away from the sack that night at Easter Road against Aberdeen, but they've managed to turn it around. Brendan Rodgers completed a treble anyway, albeit he didn't get the one he wanted, but he'd obviously got that the Premiership title, the League Cup, and they got a trophy for that progression in Europe anyway. Everybody keeps going on about. So I'm going to say Brendan Rodgers.
Cool. Best signing, Boydie. Now there were plenty. All the clubs were busy last summer and again in January. There's plenty of contenders. Who's your favourite?
I think Kasper Schmeichel deserves a mention in this category because the job that Joe Hart done and Kasper Schmeichel coming in, albeit he had a poor one in the Scottish Cup final, but I think over the piece Kasper Schmeichel deserves a lot of credit. But I think I have to go with Sam Dalby. It's not very it's difficult to get goal scorers in, Roger. Again, you look at Jim Goodwin's track record in bringing in players that yeah, you might have heard of them, but you're probably looking saying this might work. It might work, but for whatever reason, Jim Goodwin managed to get the best out of Sam Dalby. 15 Premiership goals, penalty to beat Aberdeen in that final day and get and get Dundee United fourth in the league. He's obviously been linked with a move to Wigan now. I would imagine anyway that Dundee United will be trying everything to try and get him back. But
I'm going to say Sam Dalby, because it's very difficult to get goal scorers, and he came up and done really well. Now, for a best signing, there has to be a worst signing. I have a feeling you may already have mentioned that in the Rangers segment at the top of the show, Boyd, eh?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really. I mean, there's obviously been players that have came to football clubs that it hasn't worked out for them, and there'll be loads up and down the country. I think every team will have one or two players where you thought he could have done better. But I just look at Bajrami, and for what Rangers paid from him, I would have been expecting more. 2 goals and 1 assist in the Premiership this year. It's not enough, Roger, for someone who cost £3.5 million. And I get there'll be people out there say, "Oh, but he didn't start every game." There's a reason why he didn't start every game. You get an opportunity every single day in training to change the manager's opinion, to change the thoughts, and force your way into that team. Listen, he's had some good moments as well. You think of the goal in the League Cup final. You think of, there's been Europa League goal, a goal. There's been assists as well. That there has been moments where you think, well, that there is a player there, but for what Rangers, the outlay that Rangers have had to fork out and what they've had in return so far, I may add, I think it has been a little bit disappointing.
Again, another category, Body, another new fairy tale of this season. Now, there's some great stories out there. Isco Bride coming into the league for the first time. Those back-to-back promotions for John McGlynn and Falkirk. Dundee United coming into the league, as you say, finishing 4th place and qualifying for Europe. Aberdeen winning the cup for the first time in 35 years. Who would you go for here?
I'm going to go for Aberdeen. I think as you say, they're 35 years not having lifted the Scottish Cup for a club that say they're the 3rd biggest in Scotland. It's no good enough. There's been the odd League Cup in there, but for Aberdeen's point of view, to get their hands on that Scottish Cup when everybody had them written off, but to find a way. Listen, it wasn't a classic cup final. Aberdeen won't care. They'll be absolutely delighted that they managed to get their hands on on that trophy, and the scenes in Aberdeen after it, you could tell, absolutely buzzing. So my fairy tale of the season. There's been, as you say, there's been another one. Hibs obviously coming through as well. Dick Campbell, another promotion in his CV. There's been loads there, but I'm going to say Aberdeen. 35 years for a club the size of Aberdeen is no good enough, but they've managed to end that hoodoo this year and deserve it.
They were so happy that even I welcomed you down Union Street in that top bus.
Maybe a step too far, friend.
Now, if Dyson Maid is the obvious player of the year, is there an equally obvious Scotland player of the year?
Yeah, I think obviously, are we speaking just in Scotland or just in general, just all over?
Scotland's international player of the year, a player who plays for Scotland anywhere.
I think Scott McTominay for me is what he's achieved at domestic level with Napoli, and he's obviously lifting a league title. I don't think you can look past him. He is the talisman now of Scotland set up. You look at Steve Clark, and I think Steve managed to crack a joke himself. He tried to make him a centre back, and now you look at him, he's a midfielder arriving in the box scoring goals. So I think that his problem was, Roger, he could play that many positions, and he was good in that many positions. And sometimes when you've got someone like that, and somebody gets injured, and I play, we'll just move him there. He'll be all right, and then we can move him into midfield. We can move him here, we can move him there. And it was the same with Man United as well. I think what you're seeing now is someone who is playing in the role that he's playing with Napoli and thriving. The goals he's scoring, the threat he is going forward, and the one thing that stands out above all of that, that's brilliant. But see his work rate, Roger, unbelievable. If Scotland are going to have success going forward, it's those type of boys that we need in and around the squad and in that starting 11. So Scott McTominay.
Now, we've got a category here, Boyd, the blunder of the year now. You have to
Blunder.
remember, blunder, way back at the start of the season, the work at Ibrox, and Rangers having to decant to Hampden. It seems a million years ago, but it was actually just the start of last season. You see some on-field blunders. You mentioned Kasper Schmeichel in the Scottish Cup final there.
Yeah.
What stands out for you? What made you what made you shut your eyes and go, oh dear?
I think there's been a few, as you say there. Obviously, that Rangers one. I think Hearts missing out the top 6 as well.
Yeah.
You know, and I know people will look at it and think that
and missing out in the knockout stages in Europe. And
Europe as well. Where else? Ross County as well. You know, you're 2-0 up, and then you managed to throw that away. Rangers at Hampden was a disaster right from the off. Kasper Schmeichel, you touched on there. I don't like doing this. I don't like picking on them, but I have to go with the old referees. We have to give them a mention. We have to. I think Nick Walsh at Easter Road was blunder of the year.
The ghost goal.
The ghost goal. Blunder of the year. Definitely.
There you go.
Definitely.
There you go. Go on, Nick.
And the thing is as well, Andrew Dallas and VAR as well, we've as well bringing back Hugh Dallas.
Oh, dear, oh dear. Or J.R. Ewing in Dallas. One of the three.
The real Dallas.
The last one, boy. We had to include this. The pundit of the year. Who's the man?
Wrong this one on me, Roger. Pundit of the year.
There's a lot of big talking, hard hitting.
There is. Oh. Pundit of the year. I can't pick myself, can I? I can't pick myself.
Listen, it's up to you.
You
could have a bronze medal, a silver medal, and a gold medal. You can do it in reverse order. You can do it any way you like.
Right, I think I've got it.
Go for it.
I'm going to say third. Chris Sutton. Yeah, third Chris Sutton. Yeah. That's up a good few notches from previous seasons, because now he's started to work with me. He can understand, you know. So he's jumping on the ladder. He's climbing the ladder. I'm going to say my sidekick. But I'll put myself at 2. There you go. I was going to say 1, but I'm going to put myself at 2. I'm going to say James McFadden. I'm going to say Faddy. Yeah, I'm going to say Faddy. I mean, he's got an array of talent. I mean, he can cover every single programme there is going. We've seen that. We've seen him in podcasts. We've seen him in the BBC. We've seen him in Sky. We've seen him at championship games as well. James McFadden is my pundit of the year.
Absolutely terrific. The only thing he doesn't do is Homes Under the Hammer. We'll maybe get into that.
That's coming.
He's doing everything show on the television.
Or advertise hair gel.
There you go. Well, we'll do this again next year. So I want you to keep notes right through the season of blunders, fairy tales, players, pundits. We'll come back to this in 2026 with a fair wind and God willing, Boydie. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much. I've enjoyed it.